All the very latest now with the ITV Lunchtime News.
The big booster campaign gets underway with the Prime Minister under pressure again over lockdown rules. The government insists parties can go ahead this year, but did Downing Street break its own rules last Christmas?
The Prime Minister doesn't deny there was a Downing Street Christmas party last year.
All guidance was followed completely during number 10.
Also this lunchtime, crisis in childcare. Our exclusive research shows nurseries are under impossible strain. Fears of record numbers sleeping rough this Christmas. We'll speak to Olympian Jade Johnson about her experience of being homeless. And
how are you today?
Fine! Calls for us all to lend an ear to loved ones who might be struggling during the festive season.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Romilly.
Good afternoon. Don't cancel your Christmas parties is the advice from the government, despite concern over the spread of the Omicron variant. The Prime Minister is relying instead on speeding up the vaccine booster programme, with all adults promised the offer of a third jab by the end of January. Some NHS leaders are questioning whether the health service can cope with that timetable. And at Prime Minister's questions in the last hour, it was Downing Street's own parties, allegedly held while the country was in lockdown last year, that came under scrutiny, as our deputy political editor Newscaster reports.
They say they're going as fast as they can, getting jabs in arms. Here in Eastleigh, converting a church into a vaccine centre, part of a national acceleration to the booster programme.
Yeah, last 2 days since the announcements were made, it's been really busy, and we've had lots of people walking in and trying to get a vaccination on the off chance.
The government hopes this will be enough in the fight against a new variant. But will it?
Are your restrictions tough enough, Prime Minister? Should we cancel Christmas parties?
No comment there, but the Prime Minister had to answer when he got to Parliament, including about his own reported Christmas parties last year.
As millions of people were locked down last year, was a Christmas party thrown in Downing Street for dozens of people on December the 18th?
Prime Minister! Mr. Speaker, what I can tell the right honourable gentleman is that all guidance was followed completely during number 10. And can I recommend to the right honourable gentleman that he does the same with his own Christmas party, which he's advertised for December the 15th, to which unaccountably he's failed to invite the deputy leader, Mr. Speaker.
No rules broken, said the PM, but not a full denial, and so the questions kept coming.
Nice try, but that won't work.
How are people possibly expected to trust a Prime Minister when he thinks it's one rule for him and one rule for everybody else?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, I think they should concert their line of attack more closely. I've said before that he's talking total nonsense.
Meanwhile, questions continue about whether new restrictions will be needed. So far, there are 22 known cases of the Omicron variant here in the UK. That's out of more than 300,000 COVID cases in the past week. Currently, more than 7,000 patients are in hospital with the virus. And yesterday, there were a further 159 deaths reported within 28 days of a positive test. Statistics that mean real pressure for a health service that also needs to deliver the vaccines.
Yeah, I think it's going to be challenging. We're only just coming into the winter now, and already pressures are so high. And our members tell us they're expecting those pressures to become higher and higher. So adding the booster jabs onto that is, of course, an extra challenge.
A challenge from a new variant that comes as we enter December and the countdown to Christmas, a time during which no one wants to be even slightly locked down. Anushka Astana, ITV News.
While the balance of restrictions, as ever, is a difficult one, protecting health whilst not causing too much damage to the economy. To discuss all this, I'm joined by Dr. Natalie Rout, one of our regular GPs here on the Lunchtime News, and Sasha Lord, the nighttime economy advisor for Greater Manchester. Thank you both so much for joining us. Natalie, if I could start with you. The government is relying heavily on the vaccine booster programme to protect us and not bringing in too many other restrictions. Do you think that's going to be enough?
I don't think it's enough. I think the booster vaccination programme is essential and it will give us a good boost of immunity among the population. So it's very important, but it's not enough. Masks being enforced is a good move as well. But I think, we need to be quite clear about the fact that hospitals are already under pressure. We expect that pressure to increase due to winter. So not only do we have concerns about this new variant of COVID, but also other respiratory viruses which are on the rise. So everyone has to take responsibility to protect each other. We have to really be good at wearing our masks, good at social distancing, and just making the right decision about being in crowded places at this moment in time.
Sasha, if I can bring you in now, those are the health concerns there, but is the emergence of Omicron and the uncertainty surrounding that already having an impact on Christmas bookings or cancellations?
Absolutely. And firstly, I'd agree completely. We need to be responsible. But for my industry, for hospitality, this week and the last few days, it's been almost a game of two halves. We spent the last 12 months proving to the government, as Sage requested, that actually in hospitality, in restaurants, you've got the best ventilation systems you can possibly have. It's part of a planning condition. And I was delighted when he came out and actually agreed with us and said, OK, well, we're not going to mandate masks. That was a huge boost for the industry. I think the mixed messaging that came out yesterday has created a lack of confidence. I think it's created panic. And sadly, at about 2 p.m. yesterday, we saw cancellations right across the UK in what should be the busiest period for Christmas parties. I was pleased that this morning the health minister came out and said, look, don't cancel your Christmas party, because our industry has suffered now for 20 months. It's on its knees. Turnover can be up to 25% of your annual turnover in December. So to decimate the industry in December would be a huge impact on what is the fourth biggest industry in the whole of the UK.
And Natalie, back to you. We know the NHS is already really stretched. Do you think it's possible to get the numbers done on this vaccine booster programme?
It seems a little bit impossible, if I'm honest with you. We do need support from everyone. I think bringing in the military would actually help. Pharmacists are already doing an excellent job to provide these vaccinations for our communities, but they're stretched as well. They need to do their jobs on top of the vaccinations, as do we as GPs. It's high time we bring back the mass vaccination hubs and centres so that we can concentrate on work that needs to happen, because we're seeing more and more illness, we're seeing more and more sick children, as expected with winter. And so if we are expected to deliver all of these vaccinations before January, we're just not going to be able to do a good job at being doctors and being pharmacists, or all of those people and nurses that are being roped in to do these vaccination hubs. We have to give somewhere. And so we do need support from others to be able to deliver these on time.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for joining us. And let's return now to the politics surrounding the latest COVID announcements. And Anushka is at Westminster this lunchtime. Anushka, still some confusion about the reintroduction of the measures, such as where you have to wear face masks and whether or not we should be socialising.
Yeah, I think some of the tensions that you've just been hearing there are tensions that exist between ministers and scientists as well as to what needs to happen next. I mean, we heard Jenny Harries yesterday from the UK Health Security Agency suggest that we might need to socialise less. The government has pushed back on that. Some scientists I speak to are really, really worried about all this extra mixing that we're going to have over Christmas. But on the other hand, we've got Tory backbench MPs who are desperate that no more restrictions are brought in. I think a lot of the focus is going to be on what we find out about Omicron, not just the speed of the spread, but in particular the severe disease and the death statistics, which won't come for a while.
So that's the latest on COVID, but there's more news out of Westminster in the last few hours about MPs being investigated by the Commissioner for Standards.
That's right, Catherine Stone has added to the list of MPs who she is investigating Jacob Rees-Mogg, who is the Leader of the House, a Cabinet Minister, one of the key people in the Owen Paterson decision, the scandal that led to all this focus on MPs. It's around allegations that he took loans from a company he has a stake in. He has said previously that because they were loans and not earnings, he didn't need to declare them, but she obviously thinks that it is worth investigating and it will go through the process that she oversees.
Anushka, thanks for bringing us up to date on that. A new policing bill being considered by Parliament to help tackle violent crime will now include domestic abuse and sexual violence. ITV News understands that the Home Secretary has agreed to alter the wording of the legislation after campaigners questioned why the proposed new law failed to list those crimes as serious violence. Staff at 58 universities in England, Scotland and Northern Ireland have begun a 3-day strike. They're protesting over pension cuts and pay and working conditions. It means students are facing more disruption. And 30,000 homes in northern England and Scotland remain without power following the damage caused by Storm Arwen. Engineers have reconnected 97% of homes. The government says lessons will be learned. Police in Scotland have launched a murder investigation after the death of a 16-year-old. Amber Gibson disappeared in Hamilton on Friday night. Her body was found on Sunday morning. Detectives are now appealing for anyone with any information to come forward. Our reporter Courtney Cameron is in Hamilton this lunchtime. Courtney, what more can you tell us?
Well, at the moment, there's a very heavy police presence here in Hamilton. Numerous roads are closed and pathways are cordoned off as officers try to piece together what happened here. Now, what we do know is that 16-year-old Amber left her house in the Hill House area of the town around 9:15 on Friday night. The next sighting of her wasn't until shortly before 10 p.m. in Cadzo Street, which is about 2 minutes from where I'm standing now. Now, Amber was reported missing on Saturday morning, but her body wasn't discovered until Sunday morning in the woodlands area just behind me here in Cadzo Glen. Now, officers are on the scene this afternoon, and what they've told us is they're appealing for information for anybody who may have been in the area at the time, who may have saw anything and can help them piece together Amber's movements. This is an area that's very popular with walkers, it's popular with shoppers, it's right in the centre of the town, so they're confident someone may have seen something. The next thing for officers is trying to piece together a timeline of Amber's movements to help them bring them one step closer to finding the person responsible for her death.
Courtney in Hamilton, thank you. Still to come, we speak to Olympian Jade Johnson about her experience of being homeless and...
So how you been? Good, yeah. How are you?
Why it's more important than ever to check in on our loved ones this Christmas. Next, we've reported a lot about staff shortages in various sectors, and now it seems childcare is the latest to feel the strain. Research shared exclusively with ITV News shows families are having to cope with ongoing disruption to childcare because there aren't enough workers. The Early Years Alliance has found that in the last 6 months, 84% of nurseries and preschools in England have struggled to recruit staff. Almost half have been forced to stop taking on new children or limit numbers. And more than a third of staff members said they're actively considering leaving the sector. Our correspondent Rupert Evelyn has been to visit one nursery in Bristol.
Well, this is the image that everybody wants to see, but of course creating the ideal nursery school place brings with it an awful lot of pressure for people who run them, such as Steve Sayers. You're the boss here at Windmill Hill City Farm. You know, don't you, what it's like on the front line and the pressures in terms of staffing. Just explain that to me at the moment.
Absolutely. So we're having real problems recruiting staff that we need to keep the nursery open, to keep us running. It's industry-wide, it's not just our place. We've found that over the years the funding has just not been there for the nurseries, and that's eroded pay rates, and that means that we haven't got enough staff. We're having to close the nursery, so last Friday we had to close this service down. We get absolutely no notice, so 7 o'clock in the morning we find that a couple of members of staff can't come in for whatever reason, and then we've got about an hour before we're due to open. We've even had where parents have turned up to find that the gates are closed.
There are all sorts of reasons behind this, but fundamentally for you this is a an investment by the government?
Yeah, I mean, basically that's the origin of it. You know, the government promises to parents that they will have free childcare, and then they fail to pay nurseries enough to actually cover the cost of that. It costs us about £7 to offer what government pays us about £5 for. And that's just not sustainable.
Even though, and you know this as well as I do, the government will say, yes, but we're investing in early years education, we're already one of the, you know, we pump millions and millions into this and we'll continue to do so, but it's not enough.
Well, I've seen the headlines, you know, £160 million extra coming this year into the system, but, you know, it's got to come through the local authorities first before it gets to us, and that's spread very thinly. It's across the whole country. It sounds like a big number, but it's going to be pence per hour that's going to be added to anything if we get it in the end.
If you get it. All right, well, Steve Sayers, thank you very much for talking to us. The pressures are clearly mounting on this sector, and fundamentally the real problem here is that it's all down to money.
Well, the Department for Education have told us they are increasing the hourly rate providers get next year, and that millions of pounds are also being invested in early years recovery. Back here, there's a warning. The number of young people who become homeless in England could reach a 5-year high this Christmas. The charity Centrepoint is predicting as many as 29,000 18 to 34-year-olds face being left without a roof over their head this winter. Someone who had to experience homelessness firsthand is Olympian Jade Johnson, and she joins me now. Jade, most people watching this will be lucky enough never to have had to experience homelessness for themselves. Can you tell us a bit about your experience?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, first of all, for having me and allowing us, you know, to share this information and these numbers on youth homelessness. At the moment, we're at a 5-year high, and like you said, over 29,000 young people are going to be facing homelessness this winter. So it's really, really important to get this message out. With regards to me and my experience, I was 17 years old. You know, anyone who does know me as an athlete, an Olympian, I always had that very passionate dream, but as a teenager, that kind of came across a little bit too feisty for my mum at some times, and I was very headstrong. I knew exactly what I wanted to do and how I was going to do it, and that caused some conflict at home. And, you know, after quite a large argument one day, it was a build-up, but I'd had enough, and I just didn't want to go through that anymore and all the arguing. I had siblings, and so I packed a bag and I left. But I think as a 17-year-old, sometimes you think you're already grown up, but it was a harsh reality when I actually left home that actually I didn't have a clue what to do next and where to go. And yeah, it was just a very scary and vulnerable time.
It must have been. And what your story shows, and what I know from talking to other people who've experienced homelessness, that it doesn't take much to go from managing one day to finding yourself homeless the next, does it?
Absolutely not. And I think at the moment, because of the pandemic and everything everyone's going through, it's that really thin line, you know. Centrepoint have carried out some research of 18 to 34-year-olds, just the general public, and they've asked them some questions, and 41% have said that actually they're a bit worried and scared of where their next meal is going to come from, how they're going to pay for food. 35% have said that they're very scared and worried about, you know, having a roof over their head. And so you can see how it's just one step away and how easily it could happen to anybody. It can really just happen to anyone. And it's really impacted young people, especially this year. And, you know, Christmas is coming. You know, we get the luxury of being able to be with family in a warm, cozy, that festive environment, but that's not going to be the case for a lot of young people. And out of that 29,000 young people, a third of those, over 33%, will be sleeping rough. A few days ago, it was -7 in London. It was absolutely bitterly cold, and I couldn't believe that there are going to be some young people sleeping on a bench, sleeping under a bridge. You know, some young people actually get on the night bus and have to drive up and down on the night bus just to find somewhere to get out of that cold. So, you know, for me, it's just hopefully people at home watching will understand that it's really crucial and vital that any gift that they can give, make a donation, that really makes a difference. You know, £10 will make a massive difference.
Jade, such an important issue and really interesting talking to you about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
A British man has been jailed for 10 years in Dubai for possessing CBD vape oil. Billy Hood was initially sentenced to 25 years but has since had that reduced. His family are now calling on the UK government to intervene. And the former British number one, Johanna Konta, has announced her retirement from tennis. The 30-year-old has said she was grateful to have been able to live my dreams. And finally, it's been a challenging year for all of us, and for many people, Christmas can make things feel even tougher, whether you're lonely, struggling financially, or just feeling the pressure to be happy. So here on ITV, our Britain Get Talking campaign is back to remind us about the importance of listening to those we love. Here's Faye Barker with the details.
To be honest, I feel like that wee groundhog.
A look at the life of a TV makeup artist, listening to the woes of various familiar faces throughout the day.
Hi!
But the Britain Get Talking campaign is also highlighting the importance of listening.
Tell me about it. No, really. Tell me about it.
A survey by ITV has found 1 in 5 of us find it hard to talk about our feelings at Christmas because we're expected to be happy. And when it comes to opening up about our problems, nearly half of us worry that we'll be judged.
Charities say Christmas should be an opportunity to check in on each other's mental health.
It's so important for us to spend that time together, but it's also a chance for us to be really open about our experiences, what we've gone through and how we felt about it. So the message is very much, please do lend an ear to anybody who you're coming across during the Christmas period.
We never talked.
Emmerdale actor Emil John admits that despite dealing with fictional problems, in real life it can be hard to talk.
She left because of you.
I tend to sort of just go off the grid when something's happened to me or I'm dealing with something, and I'm really trying towards the end of this year and going into the new year, I've already sort of started making efforts to really sort of open up to people and have not just sort of having that stoic perception about yourself, really opening up and just letting go.
Is there anything that this country hasn't panic bought?
Seeing public figures speak up can be the key to help unlock our own worries. Faye Barker, ITV News.
And there's information about where you can get support if you need it on our website. That's at itv.com/news. And that is it from us this lunchtime. But Mary will be back with evening news at 6:30. The News Where You Are follows the national weather. From everyone here, goodbye.